My history professor, Congressman James Clyburn. How are you, my brother?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good to see you.
Great. Good seeing you.
So, a lot going on. First of all, you were superdelegate.
Yep.
And I know we're all going to act in unity now. I mean, the decision's been made, but, I think for some, even in my generation, a little bit younger, they don't appreciate the struggle to get black superdelegates in the position that they were in.
Right. Yeah, this was a long battle starting back in 1968. A lot of people forget the Democratic Convention. In fact, I could go back to 64. At Atlantic City in 1964, when the delegation from Mississippi challenged the sitting delegation from Mississippi and ended up splitting those seats between blacks and whites. All of that started a struggle that went through 68 in Chicago, 1972 in Miami, and it was in 1972 that we made the decision that we should not force governors and congresspeople, senators, to run for delegate positions against their constituents.
That's right.
And that way you could preserve the integrity of the process at home. And just say, by virtue of your position, you'll be a delegate. We call them unpledged delegates. So just think about this.
Right.
A guy is a governor of a state, and you're telling him that you got to, or her, that you got to pledge your allegiance before the campaign when you've got constituents in both camps.
Yeah.
So why should you risk the integrity of your administration by being partisan?
Right.
So be a delegate at the convention, be unpledged,
Right.
and that way you can participate in the decision-making process and still not be alienating your constituents. So what we've done, I think, was a mistake, but sometimes people just have to live through them.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we'll have to do this time.
And learn from the mistake as well.
And learn from it, yeah.
Feel confident about winning the House back?
Yes, I am. I'm very confident. I'm not too sure about this way of business yet, because though it looks that way today, I want to see where things stand 3 weeks out. This is a bit far for us to be talking about 40 seats or 60 seats. I think that we'll do well. I think we'll get the 23 seats we need to take control. The question we have is whether or not we'll get to what we call a manageable number, because if you only get 23 and you're at 218, 219, you can't manage too well. Mm-hmm. Having been majority whip, mm-hmm. I can tell you that you need a cushion, because on any issue, you're going to have constituents or members in this instance mm-hmm. with some problems with constituents,
right.
and you can't force a member, or you shouldn't force a member to vote against his or her constituents.
Right.
So it's still a bit dicey, though my travels tell me that the energy is on our side. The policies always work.
Okay. Lastly, you're assistant leader now.
Right.
Hearing some buzz about what you might do next.
Yeah.
Are you considering running for another leadership position or a higher, more elevated leadership position?
Yes, I am. I'm not going to be coy about that.
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, I support Nancy Pelosi. I've always supported her, and I will support her in this instance. If perchance something were to happen that she will not get to the numbers that's necessary, then I will certainly offer for the speakership, and I will pursue it very energetically.
All right. Well, and that's a struggle too. To have a woman or an African American in that position is not worth forfeiting. People want to negotiate generationally. Mm-hmm. They want to say, well, because you're a certain age, but
right.
Y'all, if you all were millennials, you couldn't just walk up and be the speaker. I mean, that's part of the process, and you all have paid your dues, and that's history in and of itself. Never had a woman speaker, what, more than 2 or 4 years. She was only in there, what, 2 years, 4 years, I think?
No, she was 4 years
4
as
years.
speaker.
4 years speaker.
Yeah.
Never had an African American.
No, and it's been 233 years.
Right.
And I think that we ought to look at that. And I'm glad you brought that up. You see, the fact of the matter is, how do you say to a Barney Watson Coleman, who came here well in maturity, or Jim Clyburn, who was 52 years old,
Right.
when the law would allow him to come here? When I first considered...
I'm 52 this year, so
Yeah.
you were the same age when you were allowed
when
to
I
come.
got here. And that's only because the laws of the land
Yeah.
prevented me from being here.
Right.
We talk about all this gerrymandering as if it's something new. There's nothing new about gerrymandering. South Carolina was a majority black state in the 1930s. Yet, our congressional delegation was 100% white. Why? Gerrymandering. And so we tend to think that gerrymandering is bad if it's used to be inclusive, but okay if it's used to be exclusive. And because it was gerrymandered in such a way to exclude black people from serving in the Congress, I couldn't get here until I was 52 years old. And so I don't know that because I have a few years more than anybody else, chronologically, that's one thing. In the Congress, I'm a pretty young guy.
No, relatively speaking, just like I use the Satchel Paige analogy.
Yes.
We weren't allowed to play. So Satchel was 60. Shoot, Jackie Robinson was in his. That's why people don't realize Jackie Robinson only played 10 years.
That's
because
exactly
he was
right.
he was almost 30 when he was able to play. So.
I mean, these guys weren't playing from high school. Jackie Robinson was a graduate from the University of Southern Cal when he broke into the major leagues. I happened to have had breakfast last week with one of the owners of the Cleveland Indians, and we were talking about Jackie Robinson, Larry Doby, and how those guys came up. Larry Doby was only 3 weeks behind Jackie. Nobody remembers Larry Doby.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Though he was the first African American to play in the American League, and only 3 weeks behind Jackie. And so he was a very mature guy when he got there. So he only had so many years to play. So you said, okay, we got to get a young guy. Come on. He was an old guy before they let him play.
That's right. No, and that's it. You ought to teach. There ought to be a mandatory history class at the next DNC meeting, and you ought to do it over the course of a few days so people can really learn, because they don't know that. A lot of people don't know that.
Right.
They're not aware that you were the age you were when you got here because we weren't given those opportunities.
By the way, I was in Kansas City at the Negro League Hall of Fame, the old Negro League as we called it back then.
Right.
And I was there a week ago, and they gave me a baseball shirt with Satchel Paige's number, which 25.
James Clyburn with us, folks. Love you, man. That's our history
Love
teacher.
you too, my man.
All right.
Thank you very
much. Thank you.
Thank you.